The sound of glass shattering was still echoing in my ears when I felt the tension shift. My daughter was on her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks, but before I could reach her, everything slowed down. A sharp voice cut through the chaos, accusing her of something she didn't do. Then, without warning, a hand flew through the air and struck her cheek with a force that silenced the entire room. The sound of the slap was loud and cruel, leaving a red mark that bloomed against her soft skin. My heart raced as she gasped, looking up at me with tear-filled eyes, and in that moment I knew this wasn't just about humiliation. This was planned, and the truth was about to come out. Hello, my name is Elise Turner, and I'm 34 years old. My weekends usually begin peacefully, with the scent of freshly brewed coffee filling the air and the sound of my 10-year-old daughter, Sophie, humming as she draws in the living room. But today, my calm was overshadowed by the weight of an invitation I couldn't ignore, my sister Cassandra's baby shower. I hadn't been back to a family gathering in years, not since my divorce 3 years ago. It was during that painful time that my mother, Lorraine, had openly taken sides against me. Her cutting words still haunted me. Elise doesn't deserve custody of her child. Those words had stung like a dagger, and the thought of facing her again at the shower left my stomach in knots. Sophie, with her bright eyes and ponytail bouncing, skipped into the kitchen holding a small gift box she had wrapped herself. "Do you think Aunt Cassandra's baby will like this?" she asked, showing me the adorable rattle shaped like a teddy bear that she had picked out. "They're going to love it, sweetie," I said, forcing a smile. Deep down, I knew Sophie's kind heart deserved better than the cold looks she would likely receive from my mother. As I tied the pink ribbon on the gift box, my mind wandered back to the many times Lorraine had dismissed Sophie, pretending she didn't exist. Since Cassandra's pregnancy, my mother had become obsessively protective of her. Every conversation revolved around Cassandra's health, her diet, her baby, while Sophie and I were left standing in the shadows. Today, I had no choice but to go. I couldn't deny Sophie the chance to celebrate her future cousin, no matter how painful it would be for me. We left the house, Sophie chattering excitedly in the back seat as I drove toward the Grand Hotel where the baby shower was being held. With every mile, my heart pounded faster. I tried to convince myself that things wouldn't be as bad as I imagined. But something about the day felt different, as though a storm was quietly brewing beneath the surface. I just didn't know yet how close I was to being right. The Grand Hotel was everything you'd expect for a lavish family event: marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and staff dressed in perfectly tailored uniforms. As Sophie and I walked into the banquet room, the scent of vanilla and fresh flowers greeted us. Pink and gold balloons floated from the ceiling, and the words, "Welcome Baby," shimmered in gold letters above the gift table, which was already piled high with presents wrapped in pastel paper and ribbons. Sophie tugged on my hand, her eyes sparkling as she took in the decorations. "It's beautiful, Mom." "It is," I agreed softly, though my eyes were focused on my mother, Lorraine, standing by the far corner of the room. Dressed in an elegant gray dress and a pearl necklace, she had the same cold, calculating look she always wore. As if sensing my gaze, she turned and met my eyes, her expression hardening instantly. I forced myself to keep moving. "Come on, Sophie. Let's find a spot for our gift." Cassandra, who was 7 months pregnant and glowing in a pale pink maternity dress, spotted us and waved us over. "Elise, you made it," she exclaimed, hugging me briefly before leaning down to give Sophie a soft squeeze. "And you brought this lovely little lady." Sophie beamed. "I picked out a gift for the baby myself." Cassandra smiled warmly, but before the moment could last, Lorraine swooped in. "Don't crowd, Cassandra," she said sharply, her eyes narrowing at Sophie as if my daughter's mere presence was offensive. I bit my tongue, not wanting to cause a scene. "Sophie, why don't we put the gift on the table?" As Sophie carefully placed the pink box on the growing pile of presents, I noticed Lorraine whispering something to one of the hotel staff. Her fingertips were trembling slightly, and the staff member nodded before disappearing into the hallway. A sinking feeling settled in my chest. What was she up to now? Guests arrived one after another: Cassandra's friends, relatives, and members of the church my mother had attended for years. Lorraine fluttered between them, wearing a proud smile as she introduced Cassandra to everyone like royalty. Meanwhile, Sophie and I sat at a small table near the back, where we could quietly observe without drawing attention. Just as Sophie took a sip of her lemonade, Lorraine's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Sophie, stop sitting around. You're in the way of the guests." My daughter's smile faltered, and she quickly put down her glass. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You're not in anyone's way, sweetie. Ignore her." Sophie nodded, but I could see the sadness in her eyes. No matter how many times I tried to shield her, Lorraine's words always seemed to leave a mark. As I scanned the room, I noticed another staff member whispering something to Lorraine. My mother gave a small nod and checked her phone, her fingers tapping rapidly on the screen. The air around her seemed tense, as though she were orchestrating something behind the scenes. Whatever it was, I knew it wasn't good. As the baby shower continued, guests mingled around the room, sharing laughter and conversations. The waitstaff circulated with trays of hors d'oeuvres, and the clinking of glasses mixed with soft music playing in the background. But my focus remained on Lorraine, who was darting between the staff and occasionally glancing towards Sophie. The feeling of unease in my chest grew stronger. Sophie, unaware of my concern, twirled the end of her braid and smiled up at me. "Mom, can I bring Aunt Cassandra a glass of lemonade? She looks thirsty." My heart warmed at her thoughtfulness. "Of course, sweetie. Just be careful, okay?" Sophie hopped off her chair and made her way to the drink table, carefully pouring a glass of lemonade with both hands. She took a few cautious steps toward Cassandra, her concentration evident as she balanced the glass to avoid spilling it. Then it happened. From across the room, I saw a staff member subtly step behind Sophie, his foot extending just slightly. Sophie's small foot tangled with his, and before she could regain her balance, she stumbled forward. The glass slipped from her hands, shattering on the floor as lemonade splashed across the pristine white carpet. Ice cubes scattered around her feet, and she fell to her knees, gasping softly. "Watch out," someone shouted, but it was too late. I shot up from my chair, but before I could reach her, Lorraine's voice echoed through the banquet hall. "What were you trying to do?" she shrieked, her eyes wild with fury. "Did you put something in that drink?" Sophie's tear-filled eyes widened in shock. "No, I didn't." The sharp slap came out of nowhere, a loud, stinging crack that silenced the entire room. Lorraine's hand struck Sophie's cheek, leaving a red mark that bloomed instantly against her delicate skin. Sophie stumbled back, clutching her face, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mom, no!" I screamed, rushing forward and gathering Sophie into my arms. Her small body trembled against mine, her sobs shaking her shoulders. "I didn't do anything, Mom," she whimpered, her voice barely a whisper. "I promise." "I know, sweetheart. I know." I gently wiped her tears, my own anger rising like a tidal wave. "You're okay now." The guests murmured among themselves, some pulling out their phones to record the scene. Church acquaintances and distant relatives whispered behind cupped hands, their judgmental glances cutting into me like knives. Cassandra, sitting on the sofa with her hands on her belly, looked horrified. Her husband, Peter, immediately knelt beside her, offering her a bottle of water. But my focus remained on Lorraine, who stood there with her chest heaving and her hand still raised as if ready to strike again. "Don't you dare touch my daughter again," I said, my voice trembling with fury. "What is wrong with you?" Before Lorraine could respond, one of the staff members bent down and picked up something from the floor, a pink envelope, slightly damp at the edges. He examined it curiously, then turned to me. "This was under the table," he said. "It doesn't seem like it belongs here." I stared at the envelope as my heart pounded in my chest. I didn't know what was inside, but something told me it was important. And judging by the sudden change in Lorraine's expression, her face going pale, her hands beginning to tremble, I was right. The pink envelope trembled slightly in the staff member's hand as he held it out for everyone to see. The murmurs among the guests grew louder, curiosity spreading like wildfire. I tightened my hold on Sophie, shielding her as she buried her face in my chest. "Where did that envelope come from?" Lorraine demanded, her voice shaky but still carrying its usual edge of authority. "Under the table," the staff member replied firmly. "It's a little wet, but it looks important." I watched Lorraine's hand twitch, as if she wanted to snatch the envelope away, but she hesitated, her eyes darting toward the security manager who had just entered the room. He was a tall, imposing man in a black suit, and his gaze was sharp as he surveyed the scene. He exchanged a brief nod with a staff member who handed him the envelope. "Let's see what we've got here," the manager said, opening the envelope carefully. Inside were neatly folded papers, but it was the handwritten instructions at the top that caught my eye. I recognized the familiar, elegant cursive immediately, Lorraine's handwriting. I gasped softly, and Lorraine's face visibly paled as the manager unfolded the papers. His eyes scanned the contents, and his expression hardened. "This appears to be a detailed set of instructions involving today's events," the manager announced, his voice cutting through the heavy silence in the room. "There's mention of staff coordination, the placement of Sophie, and specific directions to ensure a disturbance during the baby shower." The room erupted into a flurry of shocked whispers. Cassandra pressed a hand to her mouth, her wide eyes filling with tears as she stared at our mother. Peter placed a protective arm around her, whispering something in her ear to calm her. Lorraine's composure shattered. She lunged forward, attempting to grab the papers, but the manager swiftly moved them out of her reach. "These papers are evidence, ma'am. I suggest you stay back," he said firmly. Sweat glistened on Lorraine's forehead, and her lips trembled as she struggled to speak. "I was just trying to protect the family," she stammered. "That child is a problem. She's always been a problem. Just like her mother." Sophie's sobs grew louder, and I felt my fury reach its boiling point. "You think hurting a 10-year-old is protecting the families?" I yelled. "You planned this, didn't you? You wanted Sophie to fail, to humiliate me in front of everyone." Lorraine shook her head wildly, as if trying to deny it, but the evidence was right there in black and white. Her breathing grew rapid, and she staggered backward, clutching the back of a chair for support. "Mom, what's going on?" Cassandra's voice broke through the chaos, trembling with confusion and fear. "Why would you do this?" "Because..." Lorraine's voice cracked, tears streaming down her face. "Every time I look at Sophie, I see the same betrayal, the same disappointment I saw in her father." I couldn't. She stopped, her sobs choking her words. Before anyone could respond, another voice broke the tension. "Actually," the security manager said, stepping forward, "we have more evidence." He pulled out a tablet and tapped the screen. "The hotel security cameras captured the entire setup, including your meeting with our staff yesterday evening." The color drained completely from Lorraine's face. "No. Please, you don't understand," she whispered. "Oh, we understand perfectly," the manager said coldly. "And so will the police." "No, wait." Lorraine's voice cracked as she stumbled toward the security manager, but her path was blocked by two hotel staff members. The guests, now fully engrossed, whispered frantically among themselves, their judgmental glances burning into her like flames. Sophie clung to me tighter, her small body shaking in my arms. The security manager calmly adjusted the tablet and looked toward me. "I've already contacted the authorities, ma'am. The police are on their way." Cassandra, still seated on the sofa, let out a soft groan and clutched her belly. Peter panicked and knelt beside her, offering more water as she struggled to steady her breathing. "Stay with me, Cass," he murmured, glancing at me for reassurance. "I'll call an ambulance," I said quickly, fumbling for my phone as I stroked Sophie's hair with my other hand. But even as I dialed, my attention was drawn to Lorraine, whose mask of control had completely disintegrated. Her once elegant face was now tear-streaked, her makeup smudged, and her eyes wide with desperation. The sound of sirens in the distance signaled that her time was running out. "I just wanted to protect this family," she screamed, collapsing onto a chair. "Don't you understand? That child is a reminder of everything that went wrong. Every time I see her, I see him. The man who left me, humiliated me, and destroyed my life. My heart ached as I held Sophie closer. She's a child, Mom. She's innocent. Whatever pain Dad caused you, it has nothing to do with her. Lorraine let out a bitter laugh, wiping her tears with shaking hands. You don't know what it's like to have your entire world ripped apart. To be left with nothing but debts and shame while everyone at church whispers behind your back. I do know, I whispered, because you made me feel the same way after my divorce. Lorraine froze, her breath hitching as my words sank in. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes, regret perhaps, but it was too late. The doors to the banquet hall burst open, and 2 police officers entered, their boots clicking against the marble floor. The room fell silent as they approached the security manager, who handed over the pink envelope and the tablet containing the video footage. Lorraine stood on shaky legs, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. Please don't do this, she pleaded, her voice barely audible. One of the officers placed a hand on her shoulder. Ma'am, we need you to come with us for questioning. No. Cassandra's voice rang out, filled with a mix of betrayal and sorrow. Tears streamed down her face as she cradled her belly. Mom, how could you do this to us? To Sophie. Lorraine looked at her daughter, her lips trembling. I just wanted to protect your baby. I thought if I got rid of the problem, you'd have the perfect family. Cassandra shook her head, tears falling freely. You didn't protect anyone. You destroyed us. The officer gently guided Lorraine toward the exit, but before she could leave, Sophie's small voice stopped her in her tracks. Grandma? Sophie's eyes, still wet with tears, looked up at her. I was scared of you, but I didn't want to hate you. I thought we were family. A tear slid down Lorraine's cheek. We are family, she whispered, her voice breaking. But I've made too many mistakes. I stood there, watching her disappear through the doors, her figure growing smaller with each step. The weight of years of pain, betrayal, and resentment seemed to lift from my shoulders, but it left behind a hollow ache. Cassandra let out a soft sob as the paramedics arrived and began checking her vitals. Mom, I can't believe this, she whispered. Peter held her hand tightly, his gaze shifting to me. She needs to stay calm, he said softly. I nodded, stroking Sophie's hair once more. I know. Everything's going to be okay now. The security manager approached us with a sympathetic expression. We'll give the police everything they need. If you or your family need anything else, please let us know. Thank you, I said, my voice steady but my emotions swirling like a storm inside me. As the officers escorted Lorraine out of the hotel, I knew the road ahead would be long and painful. But for Sophie's sake, for Cassandra's sake, and for my own, I had to believe that this was the beginning of healing. The warm afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows of my cozy suburban home in Everdale, casting a golden glow over the living room. The scent of freshly baked apple pie wafted through the air as Sophie giggled, playing on the floor with her baby cousin, Ella. Look, Ella, Sophie said, holding up a stuffed rabbit for the baby. Ella squealed with delight, her chubby hands reaching for the toy. The sound of their laughter filled the house, chasing away any lingering shadows of the past. Cassandra sat next to me on the couch, her face peaceful as she watched her daughter play. Sophie is amazing with Ella, she said softly. She's such a gentle, loving girl. She's grown so much, I replied, my heart swelling with pride as I watched my daughter gently cradle the baby. The red mark from that awful day had long since faded, and so had her nightmares. Weekly therapy sessions had helped Sophie regain her confidence and emotional stability, and the change in her was remarkable. How are you feeling? Cassandra asked, her gaze warm and understanding. I smiled. Better than I have in years. It's taken time, but I think we've finally found our peace. Cassandra nodded, her eyes misty. Mom still refuses to see us, doesn't she? I sighed and placed my coffee cup on the table. Yes. She's still at the nursing home, and according to the nurses, she spends most of her days writing in her diary. They say the bitterness hasn't faded. Cassandra lowered her gaze, tracing a finger along the rim of her cup. I wish things could have been different. I do too, I admitted. but we can't control her choices. We've done everything we could to reach out, and now it's her burden to carry. Sophie's laughter broke the moment of silence, and I turned back to see her lifting Ella into her arms. "Look, Mom, Ella loves when I do this," she said, twirling gently in a circle while the baby giggled. I smiled. "You're going to be the best godmother ever, Sophie." Her eyes lit up, and she carefully set Ella down before running to me for a hug. "Really, Mom?" "Really," Cassandra chimed in. "There's no one better for the role. You're pure, kind, and strong. Everything Ella needs." Sophie's eyes welled up, but this time, they were happy tears. "Thank you," she whispered, hugging both me and Cassandra tightly. The kitchen door creaked open and Ethan, Cassandra's husband, walked in with Ella's bottle in hand. "Dinner's almost ready," he said with a warm smile. "Elise, you've got to teach me how to bake pie like that." I chuckled. "It's a family secret, but maybe I'll let you in on it one day." He laughed and returned to the kitchen, leaving Cassandra and me alone for a moment. "We're stronger now," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "What happened a year ago broke us, but it also gave us a chance to rebuild." I nodded, feeling the truth of her words deep in my bones. Mom's actions may have fractured the family, but they didn't destroy it. We're building something better now. Outside, the autumn leaves rustled gently in the breeze, their golden and crimson colors glowing in the fading sunlight. Sophie scooped up Ella again, twirling around while the baby cooed in delight. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel: hope. Cassandra placed a hand on mine, squeezing gently. "We've got this, Elise. We've found our light again." I smiled, watching my daughter's laughter fill the room, knowing that despite everything we had endured, we had come out stronger, united, and ready for whatever lay ahead. Yes, I thought to myself, the chains of the past had been broken, and now it was time to fully embrace the future. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit the like button, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping stories. Your support means the world to us.